What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again once again, and today, people, twas the night, day, and or afternoon before Witch Queen. And you know what? I am pretty excited. Not hyped, not by any stretch of the imagination. We don't do hype here. Hype is the mind killer. Hype is the little death that brings about total obliteration. So, while I'm excited for Witch Queen, I'm not hyped. And contrary to what some of you might believe my opinion on Witch Queen is, even after making quite a few videos saying Witch Queen looks good, there are a lot of things that I'm looking forward to. Don't get me wrong, I still think the pricing model is shit. I still think that nickel and diming the player base for ever diminishing in content core experiences is shit. I think sunsetting Forsaken and sunsetting in general is shit. But Witch Queen as a standalone experience, separated from all the bullshit that's around it, looks interesting. The two are not mutually exclusive. John and Jane Doe at Desk 365, who headed the design of the first mission, are not responsible for somebody in marketing walking up to Pete Parson and going, you know, normally, we ship a dungeon for free before the release of a DLC, or bundle our dungeons with the DLC, but how about we bundle it with the collector's edition to lock people into a year of content with the threat that they'll be charged more later if they buy everything individually and don't spend $80 to $100 up front. It's not the artist, it's not the programmers, it's not the sandbox team or any other dev team's fault that Pete Parson and the board of directors heard this idea, got Scrooge McDuck $ eyes, and started salivating like Pavlov's dogs. It's very easy to compartmentalize Bungie's management or mismanagement or lack thereof management away from Bungie's game design. But at the same time, when you're reviewing and commentating and talking about various pieces of Destiny content, how many times can you say, ah yes, the skyboxes are beautiful, the gunplay is great, the runny jumpy climby shit is fantastic, the music is orgasmic, the art design is subjective, we're never going to get Titans that look this good again. Sigh. But I digress. So while I wasn't able to make the dedicated videos on announcements like the Gambit update and the latter half of Void 3.0 as announced in a podcast like I'd hoped, time flies when you're in editing hell, I figured why not just kind of cram it all into one short video here. So let's start with Void 3.0. On the Destiny Community Podcast, members of the Bungie design team answered community questions about what's happening to their favorite Void subclasses. There's a lot. I won't go over all the changes here. There's a list on your screen if you want to see them, but there's a few comments that I would like to make. First, my gut reaction, I think like most people's, was to look at these changes and go, yikes! That looks like a lot of nerfs. And you wouldn't be wrong in thinking that. Titan Bubble, for example, now offers less bonus damage. That's unarguably a nerf. But critical thinking here, that's honestly only looking at one change in a vacuum. Over the course of the next year, Bungie plans on changing all of the subclasses. And I think that we can extrapolate from the changes in Void 3.0. I know something the Destiny community really doesn't like you doing, but I will bet all the money in my pocket to all the money in your pocket. The goal of Bungie is to tone the class power down while offering kind of unique roles and gameplay experiences. And from a design standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. In December, Bungie released the 30th anniversary dungeon, and the entire thing can be beaten by a single Titan, some gauntlets, and a throwing hammer. In mere minutes, at that point, Bungie has some real hard choices to make. Do they give bosses invincibility phases? Everybody fucking hates those. Do they have more fail state mechanics? Everybody hates those. Maybe more arbitrary modifiers that artificially add difficulty without actually addressing difficulty. Maybe even a Champions 2.0, because being forced to use weapons we don't like with champion mods has always been a hit. Or maybe they add more boss stomps. We all love boss stomps, right? And or, hear me out, Bungie can tone down the players, rebalance the game, in a way that achieves adding difficulty by forcing the players to use and master their own toolkit instead of adding artificial difficulty. I will take players needing to know how to use their class correctly over a boss with 8 million HP, an insta-wipe mechanic, an OHK boss stomp, and champions running around with seasonal mods to weapons that you absolutely hate using. With all of that said, currently, Void Hunters are in a weird spot. The debuff mechanic that they get is utterly, pathetically worthless. It only does 15% and doesn't stack with any other debuffs? What? Why would I ever use that in a GM? Oh, I'm gonna run up and melee this major. Oops, he just backhanded me because I only did like 5 damage. And now I'm dead. You know, instead of sitting at the back of the encounter with, say, Divinity and debuffing them from a safe distance. That said, playing devil's advocate, the ability to turn yourself and your allies invisible and ignore encounters, even in GMs where champions are not present in those encounters, instead of just slowly crawling your way through, is invaluable. But I don't know if it's invaluable enough to take a Void Hunter over, I don't know, Celestial Nighthawk, Liar's Handshake Arcstaff. I'll also touch on the Titan Bubble for people saying it's now worthless. No, really, are you fuck and or kidding me right meow? One, we know that Bungie is looking at Well of Radiance as well. We don't know what they're going to end up doing to it, but we know it's on the proverbial nerfing table. Having a bubble that players can retreat to during a fight is invaluable. More so when it has one of the fastest super recharges, on top of instant cast, on top of just changing the battlefield fundamentally. And here's some harsh truths. If that slight damage nerf is the reason you're not clearing bosses, the problem's not the bubble. The one mistake that Bungie is making with Subclass 3.0 is not giving us a clear roadmap or idea of what they're doing with all the classes, and it's likely because they don't know. It's easy to look at Void 3.0 in a vacuum and say, they ruined this, or they ruined that, and you might even have a point if everything else stayed the same. But it won't. We're looking at changes, even once introduced into the game, in a vacuum that will take 6 more months to fully realize. And yeah, it fucking sucks that we won't understand how impactful these changes really are for another 6 months. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean we shouldn't criticize these changes. The next thing I wanted to talk about more in depth, but won't have time to before the release of Witch Queen, are the changes to Gambit. For those of you who do not know, a bunch of changes are coming to Gambit. From a rebalance of heavy ammo, to how invasions and blockers and primevals all work. And honestly, it looks like it's changing for the better. In the past, the problem with Gambit has always been it's the forgotten seasonal horde mode that just kind of stuck around. Oh, Bungie has tried iterating on it, don't get me wrong, but nothing has ever stuck. And I do think this has to do with, unfortunately, what Gambit's main appeal is, the PvE PvP aspect. This frustrates a lot of people, more so when there's other alternatives in the game that doesn't have the PvP aspect. Each season brings a new slew of rewards and new variations on a PvE-only horde mode. So why would I grind out hours of my life in a PvE PvP horde mode for a bottom dollar that has 12 perks in each column and drops maybe once a blue moon, when I can play the vastly more rewarding Dares of Eternity, or Astral Alignment, or any of the other horde mode, not horde mode, horde modes? Sure, bottom dollar might be a great hand cannon, with all the right perks, but what's the odds of that actually happening? Well, with the reworks to Gambit, all of these points of contention are being touched. The Drifter will get a Saint 14-esque makeover. Invasions won't be as devastating as they were before. The heavy ammo economy seems to have been addressed. Now, of course, only time will tell. However, these changes do look like they will at least alleviate the annoyance of playing Gambit, especially if you don't like playing Gambit, when you're forced to play Gambit for a quest or a bounty or an exotic. So there is that. Now to Witch Queen proper. Witch Queen was delayed 6 months, and got new leads. And things like the new Darkness subclass was notably removed and shelved for a later date in favor of Light 3.0. Light 3.0 was something Luke Smith said would be years down the line. And in all honesty, I would not be surprised to see a Jason Schreier article in, 6 months to a year from now, talking about the struggles of developing Witch Queen and how it had like a soft reboot or something. All the writing for that is kind of on the wall. Now, that's not me saying that Witch Queen is going to be bad, not by any stretch of the imagination. That is me saying, however, anybody telling you that it's not okay to be cautiously optimistic about Witch Queen has lost the fucking plot. With all of that said, it's also these things that I believe give Witch Queen its most potential. Let's be real, let's be honest, let's be real honest. Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy had no creative vision for Destiny, and it suffered for it. So having new blood come in and change the direction of the franchise could be good, could be bad. Only time will tell. But it is the fact that we have this new creative vision, that this new creative team was intelligent enough to tap the brakes on a new subclass, and instead of introducing Stasis 2.0, they said, let's take that, put it on a shelf for now, and do subclasses 3.0. And yeah, that's about it. I've already talked about crafting in another video, so I won't reiterate my opinion about that here. But hey, you know, those are my thoughts. I'm excited for new content. Of course, I'll be doing a review. I'm not sure if I'll stream, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon. It really helps the channel out. And above all else, stay frosty.